Hello, everyone. Charlotte Adler here with the National Sports Media Association. Today, I am here with Jeff Jacobs, 2022 Connecticut Sportswriter of the Year and 11-time winner of this award. Congratulations on this huge accomplishment again, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Charlie. I really appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about what it means to you to win this award?
Well, this year it means something different for me because I had spent most of my career covering the biggest events out of Connecticut and nationally. From a lot of University of Connecticut basketball, men's and women, the Super Bowl. We're stuck between New York and Boston, so that meant all sorts of World Series and Super Bowls in the prime of like what newspapers were. And so last year, before I decided I'd go maybe retire in a couple of years, I decided to go back to high schools. And I wrote all this past year as a high school columnist. So it was really I hadn't really covered high schools much since I first broke into the business in the late 1970s. So from that point, it's been refreshing and cool to write about young people, and then winning the award this year on that it made it feel a little different and pretty cool.
That's so interesting to hear. What led you to cover local sports after covering huge events like Super Bowls and Olympics and stuff?
Well, part of it was the everyday pressure of deadlines and things like that, but a lot of it was I think anybody who's covered big time sports knows there's a lot of give and take and controversy and
Sure.
this and that. And you wake up on a certain day and you go, well, you know what? I went to 12 rounds of the fight, and I think that we'll leave the decision up to the scorers. But I think I had enough of it.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm kind of enjoying it as a consumer last year, all those events, rather than covering them.
for sure. Um, so like you said, you covered some of those biggest events in sports. What has this been like for you, and what were your favorites to cover?
I covered 3 or 4 Olympics, and that was really cool because it took me to Beijing, China, and Athens, Greece, and I just
Okay.
remember the shot put actually being held at one of the ancient marvels in Olympus, and it was like the guy. There was an argument, and the guy said he was fouled, and the judge was yelling in another different language, pointing to it. And I looked down, and the judge was like stepping on a piece of marble that had been used for this as a starter sprint back was in 700 BC,
Oh my
776
gosh.
BC. So that really struck me. But the intensity of I you know Patriots won so many Super Bowls and the Yankees won so many World Series. That was really cool. But you're kind of, I don't want to say you're an outsider, but you're a step away from those cities. And so UConn men winning their first national championship was in 1999 was enormous for the state. I think 50% of all TV viewers watched that night in the state.
Wow.
And I missed the first UConn women's championship against Tennessee because I was still covering the Whalers. I covered the Hartford Whalers. That's how I came to Hartford, the NHL, and but I did all of them, all their 10 cents. So that always brought on a level of great interest. And Gino Auriemma was such a interesting fellow to cover. So that was terrific also.
Wow. That's really cool. That kind of you kind of answered my next question about covering UConn athletics. As someone who is a big UConn women's basketball fan myself and player, was there a specific year that really stuck out to you of either the men's or women's winning the national championship?
As far as the women were concerned, they went to the Final Four. I think it was 1991, and it really didn't make that much of a blip in the state. And
Mhm.
they went to the Final Eight in '94, and when Rebecca Lobo came in here, and let me just say, Rebecca Lobo is one of the most terrific student athletes, announcers, people I've ever met. When she came in, and that team uh, swept in and won an undefeated season in '95. Well, I wasn't covering. I'll tell you where I was. I was in Tampa in 1995 watching the game on television after having like covered a Whalers Tampa Bay Lightning game. So that just shows you how much I was interested myself, just
Wow.
being there. And then with the Stu Bird and Diana Taurasi, that really in like 2000 through 2003, that
Uh,
really cemented it. And by that time, it became sort of a product, a brand. Maya Moore, Brianna Stewart. It was
yep.
maybe different people, different age, they jumped in at different times. But for me, then became like a conveyor belt of success, with
Yeah.
Orion being the constant.
Yeah.
And as far as the men, like I said, the 99, because they became a good product, very good team through the 90s, but couldn't get into the Final Four. And Jim Calhoun finally broke into the Final Four in 1998, excuse me, 99. Where they actually lost at 98, down your neck of the woods in North Carolina. They lost to North Carolina in a quote unquote neutral game in Winston-Salem in North Carolina. Antoine Jameson and that crew. But 99, when he won the final 8 game out in Arizona, it's the only time I really saw Jim Calhoun cry, because he finally got into the Final Four. They went ahead and they won it, and they beat a great Duke team who was supposedly be one of the greatest of all time,
Yeah.
and they knocked them off. So that was memorable. They went on to win three more national titles. So in 04 and 11 and 14. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out Kemba Walker in the Big East tournament. They played 5 games in 5 days. And in there, they beat Pitt on this step back jumper that is like the most immortal play in UConn history, in the sense that he broke the ankles on the defender. And if anybody sees it online, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Wow. Wow. It's really unique to hear all these different stories. Um, is there, just kind of shifting gears, is there someone in the business who helped you get to where you are today? Obviously you've done a fantastic job on your own, but is there someone in particular who mentored or guided you?
I think I have an interesting answer in that. My best friend, his name was Jerry Sullivan. He worked in he was a Buffalo News, the big paper up in Western New York. He was a sports columnist there as long as I've been in Hartford and in Connecticut with Hearst. And we grew up down the street from each other. And we used to read Sports Illustrated Sporting News back when they put all the columnists. This is pre-internet, obviously. They used to have all the columnists in from different cities right each week in that, and we just loved reading that. And we wanted to be sports writers. We played sports and read sports and wrote about it in high school together. And then we went to the University of Missouri together, which is one of the we consider one of the best journalism schools in the nation, serving out all sorts of award winners and
Yeah.
sports broadcasters and writers. And so we did that all over again in college. And I was the best man at his wedding. He was the best man at our wedding. So we kind of pushed ourselves. So it was kind of I mean, sure, we read different people and different people helped us, but really the peer pressure of going back and forth, improving ourselves, that was a driving force for me.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really cool experience and story to hear. Um, if you had to describe yourself in one word and just as a person and as a sports journalist, what would it be? And is there a certain mindset that helped you get to where you are today?
Well, I think people would probably, I've seen myself described as dogged. And I take that as a compliment, but I'm sure that some people might see it as over dogged or over passionate. Passionate and dogged are two words that come to me. You know what? Curious. As you get older, the one thing that bites older older people, journalists have been on the beats or whatever forever. Remain curious, because if you reach a level of like you lose your curiosity. Hey, what's up today? What's up that? That really hurts a journal and anybody in the communications and media field. Uh, in my own career, I was a NHL writer for my first half of my career, and then I was a columnist for the second half. So I have very distinct things. I think that I guess the good news is I learned, hey, the heroes in newspapers to me are the sports beat writers. They go
Mhm.
out there every day. I mean, on the major beats, they go out there and bang heads and try and get stories and deal with competition. It's and they travel. It's a very physical thing. It's mental, but it's very physical. And I know that by the time I'd reached 40 something, I was kind of a little worn out on the beat work. And I was really thankful to be, someone my age. I went back and looked at my resume from like 1977 when I got out of the University of Missouri, and it said, long-term goal, become a sports columnist at a metropolitan paper, and that was it. Reached that goal. It was that was it, really. Nowadays, it's just the exact opposite for people. Like I said, in my days, it was write as well as you could and know as many great sports as you could.
Right.
And now it seems like know as many platforms and excel as many platforms as you can. And it's kind of specialized in one sport.
Mhm.
Uh, and that can get you notoriety and and success. I will say kids today do not write a sentence as well as we did.
Yeah,
Do not. They are much better in all sorts of different areas. As far as like sentence to sentence, I'll take 1977 over 2022.
for sure, for sure. And I know you kind of said staying curious. That could be part of your advice, but this is the last question, but do you have any advice for young sports writers and those who aspire to get to where you are now?
Like I said, because there's so many different platforms, I don't. People seek advice. I don't have like absolutely specific advice, but I do have some general advice. One is to use all those platforms that you have, and people might come looking for you for that one of those specific platforms. Be
Right.
ready to jump on that. You might see yourself, oh, I'm the I'm a better writer than most, but I'm not as good on camera. But if someone comes and says, "Hey, I like your work on camera," go for it. And the other thing is, when you're young, you got to be flexible on where you're able to go. It's
Mhm.
just not one of those professions that you can just kind of say, "Oh, I'm staying in San Antonio, Texas," and you may end up back there, but you have to early on be flexible to move.
Okay. Great. That's really awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for your time here today. It was really great chatting with you, and congratulations again on winning this award.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Charlotte. I really appreciate it.
Of course.